Hey, what's up? So this is something that I don't talk a whole lot about on this channel. I guess it's one of those things that may seem like it's an understood thing that we all deal with, but I've mentioned it a few times, whether it be some embarrassing symptoms, that I had, or a few embarrassing moments, or a few stories here and there. I do a lot of storytelling here, but there were a lot of times that I was just flat out embarrassed because of my anxiety, either straight up in the moment or it'd be later on after the fact that, something happened, or I'd start to think about it and I was like, man, why did I do that in front of such and such? Or, oh man, I look like an idiot, or I felt stupid, or, whether it be a stranger, a friend, a family member, a girlfriend, I had a lot of shame that I carried around with me dealing with my anxiety. I know a lot of you do as well. It doesn't help that people don't understand what we're going through, and I think that feeds into the embarrassment. I felt like if I could just connect with these people and they would get what I was thinking and get what I was feeling, then I wouldn't feel that. Even if they weren't really going through it and I still had to dip out or ask this person to pull over or remove myself because of a panic attack, or have to ask somebody to stop because I have to use the restroom for the third time, maybe it wouldn't be as bad if they could at least understand. But that lack of understanding that we have with other people is always going to be somewhat of a barrier that makes support in some ways difficult, or relation difficult, obviously. Nobody's going to understand you fully unless they go through it themselves. And that's with everything in this life. You can do a simulator for flying, right? But it's not the same thing as actually flying. You can go to boot camp before you go to battle. I'm pretty sure most veterans will tell you it's not the same as actually being in a real gunfight. So we can do the best that we can to get other people to understand and talk to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they're never going to 110% understand, and I think with that comes like a little less sympathy than we could get even in the best situations from loved ones. But that's part of it. We got to put our big boy pants on, and we have to be there for ourselves, and we have to pick ourselves up. Yesterday I talked about trying not to feel sorry for ourselves, even though that seems like a comfort for us. And I'm not trying to be ugly when I say that. What I said yesterday was I try to make these videos and tailor them to what I would like to hear whenever I was going through the thick of it, because I did feel bad for myself all the time, but it's just not productive. No matter what it is that got you to this place, or even if it's somebody that did something to you to hurt you, we still have to take accountability for our own mental health. That's just the way it is. And hopefully you can find support, and hopefully you get help from this. Hopefully you can get help through therapy. If you're seeking help through a trauma expert, that's great too. Do what you got to do and take advantage of all the resources that you can to get the help. But, be there for yourselves, and pick yourself up. But now that I've talked about that, let's get into some of the reasons why anxiety was really embarrassing for me. First of all, there's certain symptoms that were very, very embarrassing for me. It's not just like having chest pains, and obviously panic attacks can be embarrassing. But like as far as individual symptoms that people don't really talk a whole lot about, for instance, like I mentioned, having to stop to use the restroom. One of the most embarrassing and frustrating things for me was going on a trip and having to request to pull over so I could use the restroom, and it wasn't just because of things like diarrhea, even though that happened a lot, because of my anxiety. Like I said, it wreaked havoc on my digestive system. I had horrible IBS, but you also get frequent urination. So both of those, frequent urination and then just IBS leading to things like diarrhea. Or gas, that's another one, trapped gas. And then, you don't want to do that in front of people. You don't want to be rude. It can be very, very hard to hold that stuff in, but trying to remove yourself, or constantly feeling like you have to remove yourself to either go to the bathroom for number one or number two, or to relieve gas, it's annoying. And you just hope to God that people aren't getting frustrated, and you can just feel embarrassed, especially whenever if it feels like you have a shy bladder and you have to stop 3 times on a little road trip that's like an hour and a half. You just know people are getting frustrated, And when you can tell people are getting frustrated, it gets even more embarrassing. So those symptoms were embarrassing for me. Also with trapped air, just belching. I went through this period, especially when my IBS was acting up, just constantly having to like belch. And it's really, really embarrassing when you're having to do that, when you're having conversations, and it's not even like, I mean, it feels like you're just chugging soda or beer nonstop. And then you just have to constantly just like, yeah. And then yesterday we're, just having to do that over and over again. You just feel gross doing it. And yeah, so that was an embarrassing one. I went through, not really a phase. This happened a lot in general, and I'm not trying to make you guys yawn. I'm going to make somebody yawn. Comment and let me know if you yawned whenever I started talking about this. But I had this issue with yawning a lot. A lot of people with anxiety deal with kind of a more consistent yawning. I don't know the exact science behind it. I think it's because of our breathing patterns. We do a lot of shallow breathing. So we're trying to get that deep, satisfying breath. I think that's what our body is yearning. So, we'll yawn a lot to try to attain that, to make up for the shallow breathing. Or if you're doing a lot of hyperventilation with panic, you might follow up that with a lot of yawning afterwards whenever your body's trying to calm down and get that oxygen up. So yawning was another one. I hated to yawn in front of people whenever I'm having conversations because I didn't want people to think that I was disinterested. So yawning was another embarrassing symptom. Now, just having panic attacks, this is the big one for me. Again, having to ask somebody to pull over on the side of the road so I can call my mother and get her to hopefully talk to me enough to convince me that I'm not dying, because she was a nurse and I would always call her. There was a time that I was driving with one of my buddies. He drove a long ways to come to see me and to stay at my house. And, the night before we had a lot of fun. What did we do? We stayed up, we drank. I should have known the next day it was going to be hellacious, because that's how it was if I partied a lot or partied hard and drank a lot of beer. Well, we stayed up, played beer pong, but we had this whole day planned. We were going to go bowling. I think we were going to go see a movie. We were going to go hit up this cool restaurant that was like a bar restaurant thing. Everybody in this college town went there, so it was fun. We were going to go have some beer. We had it all mapped out. Okay, so we're just leaving the house, and it was about like a 10-minute drive to town at this time. This is after I already moved from my hometown to go work at this job where I was a general manager. It was a really good job. But I was in a college town, and we were going to go do all this stuff. I was about 10 minutes out of town, and we're driving. He's driving. And one of the biggest pressures for me, where I found myself in these embarrassing situations, was being a passenger in the car. It was already hard enough for me to drive, but at least I could pull over whenever I want to. I could call my mom whenever I wanted. I got my cold water here and I could chug it, or I could speed if I needed to speed to get to where I was going. Not dangerously speed, but just, a little bit faster than the speed limit to get to where I needed to be. But I was more in control, even though it was still hell for me driving. But being a passenger, oh my gosh. Let me know, guys, down below, if it was, harder for you to even be a passenger than to actually drive. Because you really don't want to have to tell that person to pull over. So I asked him to pull over, and I was like, man, I'm just, I start to apologize. And I would do this like if I had to ask somebody. And he was like, no, dude, are you okay? Because he was concerned. He had never actually seen me have one of these panic attacks. I was like, please. And we pulled over into this tire shop because we had just gotten into town. And I started to go into full hyperventilation. This panic attack got so bad, I remember my vision got blurry. It was almost tunnel vision for a little bit, like borderline starting to kind of like black out a little bit. Scared the crap out of me. I was like, this has got to be a heart attack. Got on the phone with my mom. Another embarrassing thing, I'm a grown-ass man over here, and I have to call my mom. Anyways, he's just outside of the car, leaning against the car, just kind of looking at me. And I can tell he's confused and concerned. He's looking at me like, maybe you should go to the hospital or something, and I'm having to tell him in the midst of me, like, I hope I'm not dying of a heart attack. Like, no, man, it's probably not that. I have these attacks, they get bad. And again, I'm sorry. So this lasts for like 40 minutes. And then, I don't totally calm down, but I'm not like going crazy mode with my panic. We go to a restaurant and we're going to try to have lunch. We kind of skip out on the movie. There ain't no way I'm sitting in the movie theater or trying to bowl or anything with this. So we go to a restaurant. My idea was like, I'm going to have a beer or two and I'm going to kind of calm down, because usually that would help. like I've mentioned before, unfortunately, I turned to that a lot of times to help numb my symptoms because it worked, and it worked fast. I'm not going to lie about that. And anyways, I got me this big old fishbowl, like draft beer, and started to sip on that. And I only drank like a third of it, and then my panic started to ramp up again. And I was just like, dude, I am so sorry, but I got to go back to the house, and I got to take me some Benadryl and lay down and try to see if I can just wait this out. And, it was just a moment of defeat because I know he had been looking forward to this day even more than the partying and stuff that we did the night before. And I felt really, really bad. We drove back home, and he was like, man, it's okay. I just never thought your anxiety was this bad or rough. He had never seen anything like it. So it's like, yeah, man, this is what it's like for me. This is like what it's like every single day. So luckily I had support, but did I feel defeated and embarrassed? Yeah, I felt embarrassed, as like a man, as a friend. I wanted to go I felt so guilty and embarrassed that, he drove this whole, it wasn't a crazy amount, but it was like 3 hours away to come stay over and hang out today. And I couldn't get through it. We came back home, and he stayed over for about an hour while I was trying to just chill out, and he ended up just kind of getting his things and leaving. I told him that probably nothing's gonna happen, man. And again, I'm sorry, man. We'll try to redo this, or I'll come see you or something. And that was that. I remember having to leave the golf course a couple times, and I could see the frustration on my friend's face. I don't know if I could necessarily blame them. They couldn't understand what I was going through. They're sitting there thinking like, Trey, dude, you're healthy, you're fine. You're not having a heart attack. We're out here playing golf like we always do. Nothing's gonna happen to you, man. Nothing's gonna happen. And I'd have to go back. One time we just left the golf course. That was a real big deal. And then another time, I think I just sat in the truck with the AC on to cool off while they finished. So that was bad. In a couple other instances, I'm not going to tell you each and every story, but a lot of similar things happened with me having asked people. It was just really bad whenever I had to ask somebody to pull over. Trying to hold it together at family functions. Sorry, this sun's starting to kind of come through here, but having these things at family functions too. And a lot of you guys might have it even worse than me when it comes to family, because families can be some of the rudest people that you have in your life, unfortunately. Trying to hold it together because, even my dad didn't understand a whole lot. He said he had anxiety and bad, but I never saw him get like I got, ever. So some parts of my family, I've always felt like they could be a little bit on the judgy side when it comes to things. So, trying to hold it together, having to, leave and like, what's up with Trey, or what's going on with him? You know what I mean? That led to some embarrassment and shame, of course. So, family things were tough for me as well. But just certain symptoms, panic attacks are really rough for me. Oh my gosh, and embarrassment at work. Whenever I had to leave to go to the hospital and get my assistant manager to take over at just a second's notice because everything just hit the fan really quick, and having to a customer talking to me asking for a certain shoe size because we're having a shoe sale, and I just blacked out and had a panic attack, and I just turned around and just left while she was talking, and I had to go get my assistant to cover it. I was like, there's something wrong with me. I got to go to the hospital. Embarrassing for me. I know there's tons of things that I'm leaving out, and maybe I'll make a part 2 video to this. But I think you get the idea, and if you've got something that you want to share, let us know down below, whether it be panic attacks, individual symptoms, scenarios, stories, times you had to leave somewhere, come back home early, having, these episodes in front of people. It's not an easy thing. And I think a lot of it is fueled by them obviously not understanding. And then, I think it's just, we also have this fear of being judged, and we already have a problem with catastrophizing. So we're going to think that somebody's going to think that we're being ridiculous. Sometimes people do think that, but I think a lot of times we think things are worse than they actually are. Like with my friend that came down and visited, like he was actually being cool and supportive. Meanwhile, I'm over here just super embarrassed about the whole situation, but he was cool. He handled that really good, as far as I'm concerned. But at the time I was just embarrassed and, was thinking the opposite. But just know that you're not alone with this, guys. hopefully I was able to relate with you guys in this video. You know, sometimes these stories can help, I think. Sometimes just knowing that you're not alone can make a difference, or at least get the ball rolling and maybe lift some weight off your shoulders. But share your stories down below in the comment section, please. And you know, if you want some extra support, guys, I always mention this at the end of my videos. You know, I do have a program that's helping a lot of people. That recovery course is down below in the description in the first pinned comment. Elite Anxiety Bootcamp has been a blessing for a lot of people. I tried to read as many reviews as I can to you guys without bombarding you guys with them. So whenever I read those reviews, it's showing that it has made a difference in many people's lives, and it has helped people with recovery. So I'm proud of that. I want you guys to know about that. So whenever I mention this stuff at the end of the video, I know sometimes it can be repetitive, but I want you guys to take advantage of something that is honestly very affordable compared to most programs that are, a lot of people charge hundreds and thousands of dollars for stuff like that. I've never felt comfortable doing that. So this course on purpose is very affordable, so most people can take advantage and get some help that they need, whether it be panic disorder, health anxiety, or generalized anxiety disorder. That's designed for you guys. It's down there below. Please like this video if you got value. I'm trying to upload more if you can't tell, and subscribe if you're new. But I love you guys. Hope you enjoyed the videos today. I made a video earlier today, so go check that out too. I will talk to you soon. Bye.